Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the fourth day of the Diagnostics Conference week. And this week, we're going to be talking about KPIs. I also have the privilege to introduce Dave Kramer from Saskatchewan Power. So he's going to be joining us for the discussion a little bit later. I'm going to start off with a quick introduction, and then I'm going to let Dave talk. Then we'll have a question and answer session, and then I'll close it out. Good. Welcome, everyone. So I have here on my screen from KPI to KPI to KPI. And you're saying, what is that? Well, I'll get into that a little bit later. Good. So the journey so far, on Monday, we had a discussion from Paul Meister about the current state, which was much more about being reactive. On the second day, we had Koen Porteners talking about monitoring myths, where he described the differences between horizontal and vertical monitoring solutions. Yesterday, we had Gert Weisman talking about GDPR and privacy. He put it out in layman's terms, so it's very easy to understand and what it means to what you can do with diagnostics. Today, we're going to be talking about KPIs, proactive monitoring. So what was I describing? KPI. So the first KPI is key pieces information. You need to have the granular information in order to take the next step. What is that next step? That's your key performance indicators, which is normally what people relate KPI to. And there's a third one, and that is key proactive initiatives. So this is something that I'm briefly going to describe for you. Key pieces of information. It's about lots of data, big data, as granular as possible. It allows you to gather information about users, about the business, about IT, and putting that all together so that you can start to analyze that information. If you don't have the right information, you can't go to the next step. It's very honest. The next one is the key performance indicators, where you get a chance to analyze the data for a user or for the business process or for the IT. But analyzing it means you get a number. So once you go beyond a certain threshold, those indicators will start to identify what you need to do for your next task. And key proactive initiatives are taking those actions once you've gone beyond those thresholds. So whether it's a user doing something incorrectly, or whether the business process function is not being used properly, or whether there's IT issues, these are the things are thresholds that you can set up so that you can look at how to improve and start taking proactive initiatives. And it's a cycle. You continue the cycle. It continues and continues and continues. Good. At this point in time, I'd like to introduce Dave Kramer from Saskatchewan Power. Welcome, Dave.
Good afternoon or good evening, depending where you are. Okay. And for me, it's good morning. Welcome from Canada.
Snowy Canada.
Very much so.
So I'm going to mute myself now, and if you could share your screen, that would be great.
Great.
And let's go switch. Okay, welcome everyone. This is KPIs for EO Smallworld. I am Dave Kramer from Sask Power. Just to give you a little introduction to where Sask Power is and where we are and what we do. We're in the middle of Canada, sorry. Saskatchewan is obviously landlocked. We have a lot of customers, a lot of capacity, but a lot of power lines. Saskatchewan has one of the highest ratios of power lines to customers. So that's kind of a nemesis for us, but we're kind of proud of it at the same time. Just to get a little, I know John for many years, so I give him a little plug here of how big Netherlands is compared to where Saskatchewan is and how big we are. It's a large province. We are very proud of that. what do we use the diagnostics for on our Smallworld system? We have about 200 update users, about 30 power CAD techs, and about 158 engineering techs. We have additional 450 view-only users into our system. So we need a visibility into our systems because we didn't have monitoring tools before. So we had looked at diagnostics a few years ago and we finally purchased it. So the first thing my manager wanted is, hey, how many licenses do we have and where are they being used? So this is just out of the box. So here's a key performance indicator that I run. This is just basically out of the box functionality with all this lovely tool set. And not only do I break it down by the top 2 applications, but we also break it down by the further one, and then how many logins do we have per day, which gets summarized up into a monthly total. So we have another guy named Gary. How busy are my CAD techs? He's got a lot of CAD techs. So here again, this is out of the box functionality. I didn't have to do any coding or anything. Diagnostics is very powerful, allows you to drill in. Big data, as John mentioned, is the truth. And that's what you kind of need because you really are going to have to dig down into it. So this is a quick dashboard I created. And it shows the different things that Smallworld may do. And we're looking at how many inserts, updates, and deletes, real functions that the CAD techs are performing. And here's the top 20 list of, or 25 that he has in his group. Well, as you can see in this one here, all of a sudden we got this spike. Now this is not interactive, but if I clicked on this within the diagnostic dashboard, it would tell me that it's a gentleman named Graham, one of our power users. And here's another dashboard. Here we get the same users, but we're actually looking at the design state changes. So how many designs are they doing per day? So you can actually drill down into this. It's very typical to look at it and see who's doing what. So now we're looking at other ways to measure the system itself, record counts of how busy is the system. So the transactions by users, we also have an SAP enterprise system. So how busy is it pulling data to and from? So we know the health of our system, that if things get slow, we can actually see if there's any spikes in the system, just like end users. So far, this has been good. Well, here we're back to that one power user. That seems kind of interesting. I don't think I could do that many, and I've been on this forever. So we have to figure out what's going on. Why do we have this many spikes? It's a lot of transactions. What's my generic reporting? So here's the actual code that would be in the diagnostics panel, and it shows just going against transactions and then the usernames of whoever we have. Pretty simple. So when you look at it, the whole system looks pretty busy, but when you look at the collections, yeah, there's a lot of, SaskPower has a lot of objects as well. We have a lot of polls and stuff, but what do we need here? Well, obviously right away, I could see the top transactions really aren't applicable for what I need. I need these ones are like polls, fuses, etc. So I want to filter out the system, or what I call fluffy transactions. I don't care about the jobs, designs. We have histories, we've got view scale hierarchies, we've got nodes, construction phases, info flags. Those are part of the transaction. If you inserted just a single poll, it might generate 5 other sub-transactions, which I don't want to count. That's why I have such a huge count. So let's exclude these from the collection report. So not in the collection, in, and here's my filter. So I don't want to really count those anymore. Now, knowing that, here's our filtered report. And thanks to Diagnostics for helping me build the interface. I just haven't had time. It is easy. I just haven't had time, sorry. Here's our system. You can pick the time, the date, the user ID. And going back into users, my boy Graham here is very busy on any given day. He has many sessions going, and he works. So this interface works really well. Thank you guys for creating that. So now I go back to that July 2nd, and I filter on Graham. Here again, you had 3 sessions that day, and this is the actual session that I'm going to focus on. I looked at all 3 to see which one generated those 82,000 transactions, and here they were. So I'm not going to zoom in on that, but here's that full report you see, and it shows all the different objects. And here we have one called wire annotation, which is one of the wire text labels that we put onto the wire of our circuits. And here it is, just zoomed in for you. So there's a deletes transactions, and there's 13,000. Seems like quite a lot. But when we asked him, what were you doing? and you can now filter by just the deletes. The top two is cable or wire annotation. Cables underground, wires overhead. So we asked him, what the heck were you doing? He actually did remove that many objects. It was a more like a feeder rebuild program where they had to clean up the feeders and clean up the annotation text, just as hanging around, making the map look messy. I think it was auto-generated, so it was almost doing it span by span, and we don't need that. We need a piece of text telling us what type of conductor or voltage it is every so many miles, not whatever. So that would really help by reducing down the transactions and saying, okay, he really did do just annotation text, and he actually did some polls and stuff like that. So that was a real interesting experience to dig through from about 11,000 transactions down to about 15,000 in total. So it really helped. That's about the end of my presentation. I just haven't had time to actually dig deeper into the actual other ones that we wanted to do, but it's a very powerful tool set. Thank you. Any questions?
Great, Dave. So I have a question.
Okay.
After you reviewed that particular process with Graham, were you looking at, okay, do we need to streamline the functionality within Small World so that you don't have these spikes anymore? Or is it just the way that you've decided that this is the way you're going to register all the information, and if you have these spikes, so be it?
Correct. Yes, that is correct. We were happy to see that our users, and especially those CAD techs, were merrily going along. And then when we hit the spike of the 82,000, that kind of really made us think, and that's why we pared it down. But just to see that spike was good, because it just reconfirmed that the system is busy, and if there was anything really busy or wrong that day, that spike would confirm that. So now that we've filtered out those other ones, we still can turn it off and then look at the entire set so that we can confirm if there was an excessive amount of transactions by a bulk update or some other, maybe a nefarious means too. We have to watch that too.
Okay. And for the people that are online, I just want to mention they have the opportunity to submit some questions on the YouTube chat. So you're more than welcome to do that. We're going to be on for a little bit. I have a couple more questions for Dave in the meantime, so
Sure.
it gives you some time. So Dave, you've been able to see this. What are some of the other KPIs that you plan on doing in the future?
Yes, we do want to dig deeper into the SAP transactions and stuff like SIMDist and other applications that ping our database. It's not just users that can drag your system down. It can be the systems talking to each other. The interconnectivities of these systems is phenomenal. Small World is very well versed into reaching into the other systems, and this one allows you to put on tags, if you want to call it that, to say, I want to look at this SAP stuff or whatever. So we've been focusing on the end users just because, and now it's maybe turned to start focusing on the system. So I had a couple of dashboards built, but we're going to focus more on that later.
I also understand, if I remember correctly, that your Small World system feeds your ADMS system. Is that correct?
Correct. And I do have a dashboard that shows that as well. So I had one that showed just the SAP, but I have one that does go to the ADMS system as well. So we push data multiple times a week, deltas as well as full transactions. So those have an impact on your system as well. So it is good to have the handle on those. You can tell if the system's performing poorly. You can see what the history was, how did it perform last few weeks, and then start looking backwards. And it's a very, very handy tool.
Okay. Good. Let me get the iPad. Thank you. Got some great. You got a compliment. Great presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Good. No other questions yet at the moment, but I think I have another one. One of the questions that we've had quite often is if diagnostics gets installed, does it hinder the performance of Small World? Do your users recognize a performance degradation? What has been your experience?
Zero, none. They don't even know it's there. That's the beauty of it too. We do have it turned on probably towards the medium to high level, or we are capturing most of the transactions that we need to, and there's very little performance in to the users. The biggest thing is just chugging away on disk and memory, and as long as you have your systems up performing well, it works very, very well. We're very happy with it.
Okay. And for everyone's information, just to give them a bit of a lay of the land, which version of Small World are you using, and a design managers? What are the components that you've got going?
I think we're at the version 5.12. I think it is around there for Small World. We're a little bit further behind than the average, and same with the design manager. We're a little bit further behind. We have a huge footprint in SaskPower and limited developing resources, so we do have to spend some time upgrading. I don't know the exact details. Sorry, that would be my DBA.
No, but I was just curious. And you're using GSS, I'm going to assume, for the connection with SAP and ADMS and so forth.
Yes, there's various products we have out there. GSS is one of them, and again, we're going to start monitoring those as well. We're more curious to monitor the system and how are end users doing, because we have a lot of users and we just didn't know how busy, like designs, what does a design mean? Is it one poll? Is it 1,000 polls? So when users say I did 10 designs today, what does that really mean in terms of objects and data, inserts, updates, deletes? How busy are they? So that's what we were after. That's the human side. Now we're going to go after the system side.
Okay.
That's the future for us.
And speaking of the human side, have you found processes that aren't being done properly, where there's been, for example, a retraining having to take place?
Yes, that's true too. One of the beautiful built-in dashboards is to see how our users are performing and show the errors, the warnings, and alerts. So errors are tracebacks usually. Warnings are, the user forgot to click this, or maybe something was mandatory. We can find those, but that is a very definite thing you can see. If a user keeps doing the same activity over and over again, maybe a little retraining, or maybe there's something wrong with the system. Maybe the development should be tweaked to not allow that function to be repeated.
Great. Still no questions yet? Okay, I'm going to continue with some questions if you don't mind.
No problem.
One of the interesting things that we've been questioned about has been things like the job server. To some degree, you talked about the transactions. How often do you end up with conflicts that could potentially cause data issues, quite honestly?
Yes, correct. We have looked at the tool to look at the conflicts, and it's very powerful. We did have our own kind of conflict application manager, if you want to call it that, built in-house to help manage that. But because our province is so large, the fact that users don't really bump into each other that much, I think what we've also done is segregated units so that each person is responsible for an area or given circuit type of thing. So we kind of help avoid our own conflicts, but they're inevitable. Conflicts will happen, but the tool does allow you to address those as well. We haven't had time to explore. I think we went live in April with this tool, so.
No, but that's great. To be honest with you, I'm really pleased. That's why I'm asking some of the questions, because I'm sure these are some of the questions that many customers are having nowadays. Mm-hmm. Good. I don't have any other questions. Any other questions here? Nothing yet. Waiting.
Sorry, you're muted.
Oh, we got one. Uh-oh, here we go. Are you ready? I didn't mute myself. How did I mute myself? Okay. We have a question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. So how long have you been using Diagnostics? So you just mentioned that in April. And how much does it help with your electric? I assume you're using Electric Office daily activities.
Yes. We have alerts and stuff. We have everything turned on so that if the systems are kind of going wonky or whatever, then it'll give us alerts. We just focused on what the end users were doing as a product of we had a real busy day and we didn't know what happened, but our DBA noticed that there was a huge amount of transactions, and that was actually on July 2nd. So we were kind of worried about, did somebody do a bulk update, or like you don't normally get that many transactions. So it was a very good indicator that, hey, not the system wasn't wrong, but something was definitely amiss.
Okay.
So it's been a learning experience. We just haven't had time to dig into it further.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're there to help to make sure you get into that
Yes,
digging.
thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
We have another question.
Sure.
You showed us a great deal of info from your system. Has the information you've gathered caused any policy or work process changes at SaskPower?
No, not yet, but that is a good point, because we are a unionized shop on both sides with CADTEX and IBW, and there's a function on crossover, so who does what. So most of our CADTEX are actually responsible for doing the bulk of the posting to working top in electric office, and the engineering techs are kept at the design level, and the CADTEX are more of they stitch things together properly. So it's very useful that way to look at the two disparate groups. We haven't done that yet. We've lumped everybody together except for Gary, where he wanted to look at his top 25 CADTEX.
Okay. And actually, in addition to a question I asked a little bit earlier, but I'm also wondering, did the users feel big brothered? In other words, did they feel that there was a bit of a concern in terms of, so somebody watching over someone's shoulder, or were they really looking at it from the perspective that this is going to help me do my job better, and really the benefit of the legitimacy of what we're trying to do with diagnostics for those users?
Yes, that's the way we approached it. We looked at it as a tool set that we can help find problems in the system, help diagnose the issues that we're seeing, especially if the users are unhappy. You have a dashboard that says unhappy users. You compare the performance between last week and let's say this week, and people are so subjective. They're saying the system's slow, and saying, well, what do you mean slow, and this or that. So we actually have key performance indicators now to say, maybe you're just having a bad, then you're just having a bad day, and it seems very slow, but system-wise, the system is performing fine. So that's an interesting topic.
Okay. And just out of curiosity, how many data stores didn't have indexes turned on?
We only had a couple. That was a surprise.
Okay.
We turned on the tool set for that. Yeah, there was only we had a very good DB, a couple of DBAs for the last 20 years that I think we had some indication there's something wrong. I think GE had to step in years ago and give us kind of a lesson on and re-indexing things and stuff. But yes, your system does show where you may be lacking indexes, and so far we've been lucky. Cross our fingers.
Okay, good.
It was great. It was a good tool to use to reiterate that, hey, our system actually is healthy. So it was nice to see your tool validating that.
Oh, you mean like a health check?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, great. Good. Oh, we got an interesting one about conflicts.
Yes.
You mentioned your own conflict system. Does diagnostics help on getting less conflicts, or does your conflict system help you out? Or are they complementary?
Help. Actually, they would be complementary. It would just validate what we're seeing. If we have especially a problem conflict, we can use yours to kind of revalidate what's going on. So yeah, it's just here again another tool to say, hey, it's not just us. It's showing that your system's showing the exact same thing. It's good validation.
Great. Good. That looks to be all of the questions so far, and I'm actually questioned out right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to close off the question session right now, and I'm going to share my presentation so that we can close this out. So we can see what Dave was doing was indeed very much circular. Gather the information, identify what the indicators are, what the thresholds are, and what are the initiatives that need to be taken, which is fantastic. Good. So as per norm, we have a question of the day, and we're going to be sending all of the registrants' websites so that they can answer or a link where they can answer the questions. My question today, and if you want to win the Diagnostics coffee mug, there'll be one underway, Dave, for yourself for joining us. So you don't have to answer all the questions. Being a presentator means that you have the opportunity of doing it.
Great, thank you.
What does KPI actually stand for? Of course, I did a number, so that was an interesting one. Good. Tomorrow, I'm actually going to be sitting here together with two people from GE, David Bloom and Dan Cooney. It's not so much a presentation so much as it is a discussion from the GE perspective with respect to diagnostics. And we're going to talk about the future state of application management. So that's going to be a very, very interesting discussion that crops up tomorrow. If there are any questions, further questions, or more information required, here's the information. You can go to the website. There's an email address, info. And what we always like to do is point out the portal in diagnostics where we have some user specific tools that have been developed, and they're being shared with all of the diagnostics community. And at this point in time, David, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I hope you don't get too much snow today. I've heard that there's been snow in the forecast, not too much snow. Really appreciate the time that you've put into this for us, and we look forward to seeing you at a conference very shortly.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone. Bye-bye.